Hello, welcome back to the Double Swing with myself, KingT, and Yumi as per usual. We've got a big preview coming up for you. It's IEM Dallas. It's finally another big event after the sort of drought we've had after Pro League. But speaking of Pro League, let's quickly recap what happened. The final episode we released was for the playoffs, and well, there were mixed results. Not for both of us. For me, it was brilliant. Yumi, not so much. My picks of Vitality and MOUZ both ended up playing each other in the grand final. So it went about as perfectly as it could. Underdog pick didn't quite make a hit, but that's okay. Na'Vi, Virtus Pro, they kind of let you down there. They really did. You believed with Virtus Pro the entire way through, so you kind of get credit for that. I guess sticking to your guns, but maybe it's time for an upgrade, eh?
Yeah, I don't know. I've been burned by these guys. This feels so reminiscent of like when I used to bank on Cloud9 back when they were on their rise, and I thought, "Look, these guys have potential." And then I started picking them at these tournaments, and then they started to just deteriorate, or they'd always crumble in playoffs. I'm getting flashbacks to that. I do think Virtus Pro will get there, and I'll probably miss out on a tournament when they actually do. But I have faith. I do have faith that they will eventually pull through.
Eventually. I think not many people would disagree with the fact that the roster on paper should be amazing. But in practice so far, it's not been that convincing.
Yeah.
I mean, a few wins, some tough wins, but not really the results they were looking for. The viewers, you're welcome, first off, because the most commented response on all of those things was simply FaZe. Everyone wanted to pick FaZe as their favorite. Even someone tried on the underdog. That's not how that works. Yeah, you're welcome. I told you. Wasn't going to happen. I knew it. That event run was far too deep for a team who's been going deep in every tournament prior. And they didn't quite make it. They did win a couple games. I did get a little worried, a little hot under the collar, but all in all, it worked out. So got the MOUZ pick through as well. And now we move on. The gap between myself and Yumi starting to open back up again. With the viewers, well, you've had too many advantages. Impossible to catch. I'm going to start removing advantages. I think I'm going to start just giving them the appropriate amount of points. You've already got a 5-point lead going into the final stretch of the year. Let's see if you're actually worth it. Let's start off with Dallas then. It's another big event. You had first pick, didn't you? I was just trying to remember off the top of my head.
Yes.
You did have first pick, Group A, your favorite. Who'd you go for?
I have chosen the team that is now, for the first time in the organization's history, HLTV #1. I've gone with MOUZ. I mean, even going into ESL Pro League, the playoffs, I think you had first pick and you selected these guys, and I fully backed your decision to do so. That environment works for them. I mean, they've been very consistent in making it to some of these playoff events, and whether or not stages are where they crumble or stages are where they start to have a bit of a deterioration in polling or form. Irregardless, this is a full academy team that are now here to play. Um, I think regardless of whether or not you think they will have the longevity as this squad throughout history, they are a team of good, growable talents with a solid in-game leader that likes proactive play. And I mean, regardless of what you think of this team, they will have. I think these guys will have great careers. So I'm picking them now while the limelight is on them, while they are the world's #1. Um, I think they will have some difficulties. I don't think it's going to be a full breeze, but I think they are a lock in for the playoffs. That is kind of how I see MOUZ going forward.
Uncontestable, that pick, I think. If you don't take MOUZ first pick when you have them right now, you'd be a bit silly. I think maybe the argument was, what about Spirit? Until they played them at Betboom Daha and beat them 3-0 in the grand final. Like, that pretty much sealed it off for me. It's like, there's no way you can pick Spirit going into this in good conscience over MOUZ Sports. The only team, really. That secured it. They looked really strong at Pro League, and it's all the things we said it would be. Like, it's the close environment. It's reduced pressure. Maybe they can make it through. The one thing you have to say here is, well, can they get that demon off their back, that monkey off their back? I think the actual expression is. It's going to be a little bit more difficult than it was at Pro League, and it was at Dhaka, because that was a relatively small LAN, all things considered. But I don't think you can pick against it. They've got amazing anchor and lurk play. They've got amazing entry play. Really solid calling. What more do you really need? I mean, the Orpa, he isn't quite elite. He's on the fringes of it. he's solid enough to make it all work. So really happy if I'm getting MOUZ picked first.
I think one of the things to note about MOUZ as well is that, if you're thinking about, vitality with Zaiwu, or if you're thinking about spirit with Donk, you're thinking about these elite superstar level players that can take over games. I think what's very good about their recent win at ESL Pro League and now Bebundaha is that they actually negated or didn't have these players pop off, and they may be actually one of the teams that can shut down superstars, even if they don't exactly have. I don't think they have like superstar elite level caliber players, ones that can actually just fully take over a game themselves. I think they're coming in with. I don't know for certain whether they're going in with a specific game plan to negate these players, but they are stopping these players from dominating their series. I think it's only when you see, I think was it FaZe at Chengdu had Brokey and Frozen both popping off kind of simultaneously. That's where you might encounter some problems, but they can shut down one. They may not be able to stop two or three at the same time.
I think a part of that really comes down to no matter what you actually end up going into the game with as a game plan, you can pretty much make it work with this roster because you have elite players at almost every spot. Like if you need to change a player's angle of approach, like force him to play in a way he's maybe not comfortable with, you're not losing that much in terms of actual overall output because everyone in your team is a pretty elite rifle, like, and a very good AWP. Like they're not obviously, as you said, superstar level. There's no one who stands out to that extent, but they're so good in their roles and so good at just in general without being a top tier that you can just be adaptable and make things work. So that might be a little bit of their success. Maybe it's just Cyclone. Maybe he's just been that good of an IGL. Oh, sorry, that good of a coach. Because he's come up with these guys. He knows them really well. It could be a part of that synergy. Now, myself, picking from what remained of that group, I thought it was also pretty obvious. I picked them at Pro League playoffs. I have to pick them here. They're the only good option, and that's Vitality. Now, they did fall a little bit short, obviously, when they went and played in Pro League. In the final, they just seemed to run out of gas. Like, it seemed like they were really rolling, a bit of a close scrape with Astralis, but they looked primed and ready to do some damage. And that grand final just didn't show up. They couldn't get anything really going. Even Zaiwu looked like mortal,
Human,
weak. Yeah. Like it wasn't a great performance from them. But I still have to believe in the same things I believed before. I still think they have maybe at worst the third best player in the world right now in Zaiwu. They have an amazing rifler in Spinks who can really close things out. Solid opening play. And it's just generally good calling. So I think the things that were good about them before have remained good. The only thing I'm worried about now is how legitimate some of the French rumors that have come out. I'm not sure you've seen this.
I've not.
Not sure how recent it is either, but it's from a KRL stream talking about Liquid, losing twists to Vitality. According to some behind the scenes conversations, it's the ratio that was given was 70-30. I'm not sure how much stock to actually have in that, but at least it could hit at some friction, potentially some conversations for replacing Flamesy. We'll see how that progresses. But I'm not going to let that distract from what really matters, which is the roster is still the elite roster it's always been. They still have that amazing top end. We'll see if they can deliver again here in Dallas.
Yeah. Zaiwu may have been underperforming at the major by not even just like his standards, but by AWP standards.
Yeah.
But Pro League, he was there, and the reason that FaZe never really made it much further than the second round was because they got Zaiwu. What he had like 54. I think I have it here. 54 kills in 39 rounds. Zaiwu did just take over. FaZe never really got a clean shot to play this game, and yeah, that's the Zaiwu I was missing at the start of this year. I know at the start of every year, for some reason, Zaiwu is just not on his hottest form. I don't know if it's like the holidays or he's thinking about Christmas or the New Year. He's thinking about all the resolutions he didn't do. But all those woes and all those things weighing him down seem to just get lifted off his shoulders as the year kind of progresses.
Le six-pack. This year, le six-pack.
But finally, it's the time. I think my concern is actually more to do with the supportive cast.
Hmm.
I'm not. I don't know if it's just because I have a soft spot for Messi, but I'm not really looking at him specifically. I am looking at the Israelis. I'm looking at Flames and Spinks, where Spinks, when you get deeper in tournaments, sometimes just seems to vanish in playoffs. Doesn't have nearly the same impact or performance. Flames sometimes actually has a charge up into the playoffs, but then in other games will look a little weaker. I just need I just need stability from this pairing, and I don't think I have it currently with Vitality. You may not need it if Zywoo is Zywooing, but I think it is if that doesn't happen and Zywoo doesn't show up, then there will be questions to be answered for these two players that are seen and are on one of the top teams at the moment. They will be held to a higher standard. I'm not sure I'm getting the output yet, so
Yeah, that's fair enough. It's tough, really, though, for me to hear the support cast problems and not think about Mezzi being
I know.
relatively weak. Like, as much as I also want to root for him in a lot of cases, I kind of have to admit he's just not held up his end of the bargain. Like, he's supposed to be a support player filling in, but even then, sub zero point 0.6 KPR, I can never be happy with. Especially for a guy with his mechanical abilities. I expect a little bit more. So I guess I also want Messi to step up, but you're right. Spinks does have a tendency to go. He doesn't go completely missing, I found in playoffs, but it's more like in playoffs you'll get like one map
Or
good, one map
mhm.
okay, one map bad in a best of three. And it's kind of like that. And you have to sort of win when you can when he's good. And then when he's down, okay. Zywoo, get a bit more on your back,
We
please.
need
Just
80% more out of you, Zywoo.
yeah, this has gone from just a team effort to a carry job again. Please step in. We need some assistance. I think that's kind of the issue. And you're right, Flamesy actually. I've been surprisingly happy with how things have gone. That's why when I've heard this announcement though, or this leak, this rumor, this potential twist moves, I've gone, ooh, like I'm excited. Maybe it's not justified when you dive into it. Maybe it's not justified because Flamesy has been better than a lot of people really give him credit for. Because I do often see French tweets seem quite annoyed at Flamesy, Messi when they're playing in playoffs, but I'm like, Flamesy takes a little bit too much stick for my liking.
Yeah.
All right, let's move
It
on
is
to the
funny though that
underdogs.
it
Oh,
is
sorry,
funny
yeah.
though that you've picked the two teams. Or well, no, we'll get into it. We'll get into it later.
We'll
We'll
get
get
into
into it
it.
later. Yeah.
I'm sure we will. But yeah, let's move on to the underdogs from Group A. Who have you taken for yourself?
I have gone with a team making roster moves that I can kind of get behind, and it is a little bit more fringe. I've gone with Monte, and I don't know what to expect. I won't pretend like I'm gonna have a like this incredible insight as to how Stiko is going to integrate and how Haji as the stand-in is going to do. But I think what Monty sometimes do need is a more veteran voice on the team. I think it's one of the things that's massively missing from SDY's departure. I don't think Gizmy or Ryu could really provide much insight on how to slow things down in the right ways. I think Stiko is a very effective communicator, and I think he'll provide them with an extra dynamic. I think they'll have a bit more stop start to their engine. I think if they find openers, they'll make better choices in the late round because Stiko is there. Um, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't think Haji was bad on 3D Max. I really wasn't sure where they were moving with that and having him in for gravity or having gravity in for him. That was a little
Hmm.
confusing to me. Um, because I think Haji actually can kind of play to this level, but I think it's hard to ignore the fact that both of these players are quite old and do have a lot of years of experience. That angle has to be worked for this Monty experiment, I guess, to show much efficacy. The first round against Vitality, I'm not looking forward to, but
Oh
future
no.
rounds, maybe they could beat the Falcons. I think.
Sorry, there's someone's hammering on something on the
Yeah, no,
building next to me.
I thought somebody was knocking on your window.
Mm, they're not. They're hammering on a piece of metal somewhere down there. But hopefully that isn't too much of an issue going forward. I'm just looking through the picks, ban like matchup. First of all, Monty, if I'm trying to pick them, Well, it has to be an underdog pick. It never can be a favorite pick. Just if you look at their map win rates, you'd be horrified. They don't have a map over 55%. Well, is it 55.6? Yeah, never mind, my bad. They're elite. And their first pick into Vitality is a map where they probably don't even have the advantage going in. Like Mirage, you're not the favored team, so I'd be horrified.
I am
Just on that
using the
basis.
underdog as a chance to just talk about a team that I find interesting because
Right.
I thought about 9Z, I thought about Falcons. I don't really care about the Falcons.
Hmm.
I've held that stance since the beginning. Um, and other underdogs were unavailable due to you picking them in our circuit in our cycle. So Monte are the ones
Yeah.
I'm going with because I thought they were quite impressive towards the end of last year. Even with the whole roster kerfuffle, I didn't think Gizmi or Ryu were that bad, and I don't expect Haji or Stiko to really mess that up either. So I think they're going to play to an acceptable level given the circumstance they're in, and I think they could take a win off the Falcons. I think they could take a win off maybe like a Liquid, depending on the day. But
Yeah.
it all depends.
Well, seeing as it's a classic ESL IEM 6-team single elim playoff, it's one of those things they just decided they're committing to now. I don't know. They've got to be one of the 3 best teams in this group. I struggle to see it happening because their level that they play at in these events is typically like 16th. If you're looking at the world, they're like 16th best in the world. I think that this event is 16th best in the world enough to make it into the top 6, considering who's playing and who's in their group. I would say no.
It's a hard argument.
It's a tough one, but you know that if other teams don't bring their level, Monte usually bring it that level. Like you're pretty good for that like 16th place in the world level of play. So it's a good bet in that sense because maybe you'll get massive underperformances from, well, Complexity, Liquid, Falcons, G2. These are teams who are capable of absolutely shitting the bed at any given moment, or just not being anywhere near as good as you'd hope they are. In some cases, like Falcons, just never being that good. So there's a good chance they can make it out just on that basis. But if everyone's just playing like kind of the average game, I think it is a bit rough.
It'll be hard. Yeah.
It will be hard. Speaking of a bit rough, my underdog pick, it's been an up and down sort of period for Liquid. And by up and down, I mean mostly down. But hey, let's try and make a case for them, all right? The things that have remained positive, the talent hasn't changed. We're still dealing with a group of legitimate, at times borderline elite, tier 1 talents and skulls who are, on paper, good enough to not only like compete at these events, but potentially go deep. So from that side of things, I'm pretty happy. Now, the other things going in my favour are Pro League. They finished top 8. They actually made it out of their group. They managed to pick up a win against one of their like group rivals in this event, Monte. So despite there being some roster changes, I don't see them really being that much of a different roster in terms of how they'll actually play on the server. So I'm pretty excited in that regards. I also watched them play a fair bit this week in the CCT Global Finals.
Yep.
And they looked not half bad. I mean, they did go and lose the grand final to Eternal Fire 3-1, but hey, that was like 2 months ago, the 7th best team in the world. That's not that bad. That's not that bad. It could be a lot worse. So I thought their level of play was fairly impressive. They managed to pick up a win against Astralis. Things are looking up going into this event. Now, they will have to travel all the way to Dallas because they've been in Europe for the last, forever, it feels like. They seem to be based in Europe now for the majority of their games. But I don't know. I feel like this is a Liquid side who have a lot to prove. There's a lot of doubts. There's a lot of talk about them changing up players, potentially them cutting the wrong player in Cadian. I think this would be a great time to really show that, hey, we do still play great Counter-Strike. If someone is going to make changes, you should come sign us. We are still really good players. Like, we've seen a better level out of Yakindar recently. We've seen... The only player who really hasn't stepped up his game individually, as like his fragging, is Cadian. And that's fine, because they've been winning and he's been calling decently. So I think there's some things to look forward to still with this roster, despite it looking like it's the end for them, ultimately, as a 5-man group.
Yeah. I mean, I was working as an analyst for the CCT thing and for CTC Global Finals, and I actually was impressed with Liquid. I thought their structure was fine. I thought, first off, I don't understand the amount of hate that Skulls gets. I will be completely honest with you. When there are players with bigger shoes and they are currently not filling them. Whether that's
Yes.
Kaden or whether that's Yakindar. Um,
It's been mostly Yakinda, I think, for the last like 3-4 months. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and
He's
then
needed to take way more shit.
but then you see these games from Caden where he just vanish, and he does actively look like he is shitting himself when he's playing the game. Like he gets shot at, and the first instinct he has is to just shake his mouse because he is terrified
He
and
does a lot
he's
of
not expecting.
jumping, like panic
Yeah,
jumping. Like it's not even mouse wheel. It's like, oh my god, I might die. Jump. And you're like, dude,
yes,
are you a pro?
yeah.
Like, what is going on?
I know exactly. It looks like he's never played Pro Counter Strike before. Um, I don't understand why Skulls gets so much of the flack. I guess because he is less of a proven heights type player, that the expectations are set that he needs to justify his position on a team that is supposed to be an elite level team.
Hmm.
And so it's easy to use him as a vehicle for that narrative. I do think, yeah, I worry about the rumors for Liquid mainly, but I imagine none of that's going to take into effect until like after the player break, right? They're going to see how Dallas goes. If it goes well, maybe Cadian doesn't get the boot, maybe Twist doesn't leave. For them, there's enough elite tier teams at this tournament that if they win it, then I don't think any changes should be made. That said, I think NAF and Twists are playing absolutely unreal at the moment. Like watching these guys play in that tournament, NAF was taking over in some games. Twist was having like these outrageous like playmaking moments. That is enough for me to believe that Liquid can make it out into the playoffs here. Um, I think their side of the bracket is a little tough with MOUZ there, but I think they can make it through in the lowers. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I'm weird about Liquid right now because I don't think Kaden probably should be AWPing. I don't think Yakindar is playing to his standard. I worry about some of the roles basically. Uh, but
Hmm.
if you have 2-star riflers, either finding openers, closing rounds, or finding these crazy doubles in the mid round, that is the two Canadians on this squad. They're doing it like kind of at all stages of rounds right now.
Yeah. Yeah, they really have been surprisingly good. Like, because NAF usually, even when in the worst times, the best of times, he's a 1.10 rock foundational piece. Like,
Mm.
always does his thing. And now he really has stepped out beyond that role most recently. And no, I agree. Yeah, we do focus in on Skulls all too much. Honestly, just because he's so easy to criticize. Like, so often what he does is fundamentally just poor. And that's the problem. Like, it's not something where you're like, oh, I mean, technically it was a read, there's a bit off. It's like, no, no, no. He just isn't playing at tier 1 standard a lot of the time, despite his mechanics bailing him out a lot, because he is pretty sharp. But yeah, the biggest problem has been Yukinda finding literally nothing, and Cadian with the big green gun in his hand. It's about as big of a waste of money as it can be right now. Like, we've not seen this level of wasted AWP. Oh, I don't want to go too far back and get too extreme, but
You're gonna
like,
say like a dread or something.
oh, we're talking that sort of thing, like Smiths, like we're talking. I don't want to get too offensive with it,
Mm.
but like, it's pretty bad considering the standard of warping right now and how
He
much
played good at
emphasis
this.
there is on it.
He did play good at this tournament up until like we started getting into playoffs. I think
Yeah,
he had like a
that's the
really
thing. Yeah,
yeah, which
he wasn't
is
even as atrocious at this most recent event,
mhm.
but he was still pretty bad. So I've got my hopes for him. But I don't know. We'll see. Before we move on to Group B, however, let's have a quick chat about a couple teams. Namely, the first one, I think a team with arguably, besides, yeah, I think arguably the second best player in the world right now on it, and a team who I've had a lot of chat around them, as G2. Now, neither one of us picked them. They were obviously only favourites. Yeah, you couldn't pick them as an underdog,
Mhm.
but neither one of us feeling comfortable with them. Despite And every time we talk about them, we talk about how disappointing they've been. They're still making top eights. You still like see win after win after win, like top four at Chengdu as well. You think, are they doing actually okay? Are we getting overly harsh? Then you remember it's the Monte show, and Nico occasionally comes along too.
And now, your favorite American Asian is back in the server too. Stewie 2K
Oh
in for
god, yeah.
Hooksy at this event. So that makes it even harder to justify. Like, even if we wanted to take the angle of,
Yeah.
yes, Monte is the second best player in the world, and Nico is actually still getting that output. Stewie, I mean, he should play better than Hooksy, like on
It's a
an
fragging
individual.
upgrade, nothing
Yeah, it
else.
is a fragging upgrade. But then also, I say that knowing full well that when he was playing with Legacy, he didn't look that
No.
sharp. I think even when they were, playing when he's even playing with like Flom and things on stream, doesn't look as sharp. Um, so
It's got
is it
those
a
Valorant
fragging up?
mechanics, man.
Yes, I think the heights of his fragging could definitely be better than Hooksy, but I don't know that we're going to have that at this event. Maybe being in Dallas will remind him of all the fonder, better times, and maybe they'll set him up in ways that we don't expect. I think G2 could be a weirdly surprising team to watch, but I can't in good faith pick them as favorites. You know, if the Stewie edition brought them down a few rankings, I maybe would have angled for them. You know, I'm honestly in a Nico in an underdog category. Oh, I'd love that. Um,
100%.
but yeah, I it'll be interesting to watch that. I if Stewie came back and he was sick, I'd be happy. You know, for him and for G2 by proxy.
Unfortunately, so far he looks, well, ill rather than sick.
Hmm.
At mouse and keyboard, but and finally, I just want to hear your thoughts on them because I've seen a lot of chat about them. What is your take on Falcons right now? Where do you kind of see them in the world? Because they're ranked 13th, but that seems generous to me. How do you feel about them?
I think they're I think they're currently Monte level, but with far better players. Um, I just I don't think they have a high ceiling with this roster. Like their floor might be okay, but if you ever need them to play up against another elite level team, I just don't see them taking a win. I know they beat VP, which was very upsetting for me. Um, but I can't see this team succeeding. And they're they're such an easy team to rag on because they are obviously the money bags team.
Yep.
Um, and with all the money, like they're trying to facilitate wins. This is a team that have a highly vicious competitors that just look so like even the mood just looks so dead for these guys, which is I think the hardest part. Like they look over their shoulders, they look left and right, and they're like, "Oh, we can't blame Boros anymore. We are just bad." Um, and that must hurt, man. Like that must genuinely hurt because they've got so many major winners on this roster. I mean, Justin Dupree and Magisk, really, but you know what I mean.
We can't bully that one kid. No, maybe it's us.
Maybe
No.
I should be on Donk's crosshair and settings. Maybe Boris was onto something.
Nah, it's been rough. It's been real rough, and yeah, ceiling wise, it's atrocious. It really is. I wanted this team to be the Sun Pius show. Like I wanted him to really thrive and show off, and it hasn't been the case at all. So yeah, pretty flat for me. Pretty underwhelming. Just hoping they can, I don't know, make some moves. See who comes available. Take some risks. Take some gambles. I mean, they are essentially right now. They are Manchester City, but finishing 15th every year. Like, can you imagine the shitstorm?
Yeah, yeah.
Like Twitter would be fire, but like it'd be an absolute mess. And that's essentially
And
what they are right now.
yeah, and if the team was successful, there would be nothing to rag on. You know, like oh, they tried to make a super team and they made a super team. You know, but
Yeah.
that's not how this worked. So
They tried to make a super team, failed catastrophically.
it's like Cloud9. Like sure, like Henry G's Cloud9 when he was announcing like how much he was paying all the players and all sorts.
Mm.
As soon as people know that there's large sums of money involved, even though there are loads of other transfers that happen where people understand like, oh, this is like $600,000 or close to $1 million for these transfers. These are all rumors, but not confirmed. Everybody knows Falcons have dished out loads of money, and so with that comes loads of criticism. For every dollar you get one downvote or one negative comment. And
Yeah, that's a lot of dollars.
only if you lose. That's the condition. Only if you
Yeah,
lose.
yeah, they've done a lot of losing.
Yeah. I think the part that hurts is that it doesn't even look like Snappy's calling or system is really even taken shape on this roster,
Mm.
um nor has Zonix really. So yeah, it's
No, and yeah, Snappy, one of the most alarming stats I think was when Nero published his positional like rating adjustments. The Snappy is playing such impactful positions, but his level is so low, like comparatively. Like it's not even like he's playing like super out of the way, impossible to play like anchor positions. He's playing rotator spots on a lot of maps, and he's just not got the aim right now. And like I'm rooting for the guy. He's been one of my favorite IGLs forever. But as a fragger, he's really letting the team down, and it's clear that the systems that he and Sonic are kind of trying to mesh together and make hasn't really worked. So, bit
I
disappointed.
think I think the struggle that you'll find with the philosophies is that Snappy seemed like very I'm telling the troops what to do. Like there was very few moments where it was like individual ownership. I think they had that trouble with Ents when they brought Valde in. They were kind of letting him do his
Mm.
own lurking thing. He wasn't, when he was playing with Spinks, he basically brought Spinks up, and Valde was kind of a foreign fit to that role, and they basically had to try and make it work as fast as possible. And that doesn't really work when, you know, it felt like everything in Snappy's system you had to play the way that he wanted you to play. It wasn't micromanage heavy, but it was like your flow chart went from like 17 options to like 3. And
Mm.
you had to play very restrictive in that. When you've got like high caliber players like Dupree or Magisk coming in, it's kind of hot. I think it'd be very difficult to say like, oh, I only want you to operate within these parameters. And I don't think that's how Zonic has traditionally coached teams either.
Yeah.
It's far less structured in that regard. So I just don't think I think stylistically they're just not a good match for each other, weirdly.
Yeah, I mean, Sonic has been. If you just look at their stories, you'll realize immediately, like, Snappy has been given scraps and he's forced them, like, forged them into a weapon. Whereas Sonic was given weapons and then he let them all just like kind of play off each other, understand because they all were elite level players
Mhm.
how to play the game, how to react to things. And he instilled like a good discipline and a good approach to that style. So
Then you give
perhaps
them structure.
yeah, like perhaps that's the big conflict there. So and I hope they can sort it out. Just because I'm rooting for Snappy. In terms
Mhm.
of rooting for Falcons, I mean, give or take, I don't really care. It's another org. I'm not going to get too attached, but we'll see how it goes. And yeah, let's move back let's move back to the actual teams that we're picking, we care about, we're invested in terms of watching this event. Group B, also got some interesting picks, some interesting teams that we're not going to actually, I think, even touch. So let's lead off with your favorite. Who have you taken on?
Well, Group B, you see Virtus Pro in there. It's mighty
Tempting, isn't it?
tantalizing. It is tempting, but I have gone with FaZe. That does seem like the reasonable choice. I think
Boo.
even on our last video, someone was like, "Why did you pick FaZe?" And for ESL Pro League, FaZe not really my shtick, not really their type of event. But let that not distract you from the fact that this is the most consistent team since the start of CS2. They have made playoffs of every event that they have attended in CS2, or they have made the finals in the majority of them, but they have at least made the playoffs in every single one of these events that they've attended. And if not for the fact they got ZywOod, they could have gone actually further in ESL Pro League. Um, I I think it is hard to pick them sometimes when it's studio events. I sometimes like to be a bit avant-garde as well, like, oh yeah, Virtus Pro, yeah, they're gonna be the next best thing. No, I'm sticking with to my guns. I'm sticking with the historically good CS2 team. I believe in Frozen. I believe in Rops. I believe in Brokey. This is a strong team, and they are challenging for titles consistently. So I think it's a very safe playoffs lock-in kind of squad.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. There's not many reasons to be, I think, overly mad at this pick.
They're a
I
little
do wish for
boring.
the memes, yeah, for like the entertainment factor you had just gone, you know what? I'm moving all in and taking Virtus Pro, like the lowest ranked favorite of all the favorites. Just gone, just shove that big pile of chips. Well, at this point, you keep missing, so that tiny pile of chips into the middle.
They'll hit green eventually.
Yeah, there's exactly that kind of situation. Also, have you seen some Las Vegas casinos have started adding a triple green? There's
Oh,
a single zero, a double zero, and a triple zero.
that
They're
sounds like
really just
advanced gambling.
no, it's just basically reducing the odds that the players have to win. It's just putting it more in the favor of the house. And apparently, that's a whole thing. Las Vegas gambling going to shit, but
Nice.
this isn't the channel for that. I
Mm-mm-mm.
don't really care that much. Just a thing.
Okay, interesting.
But no, the FaZe pick's good. It's just good, man. Like I predicted, kind of saw it coming that they wouldn't be that potent at Pro League, and yeah, glad I did. But other than that, you know, they've been really good. They've been elite. They've won Chengdu for crying out loud. Like they'll finish second at the major. To not pick them would be folly here. It'd be folly to actually stick with Virtus Pro as much as I wanted you to. Like, go a little cray cray, Delulu is the Salulu, as they say. But unfortunately, in the double swing and you're making picks, it's not quite the average person's dating life. You can't quite go full Delulu. So I respect it. You've kept yourself sane. Taken a fairly solid pick.
Yeah. If Virtus Pro end up, stomping out their group, I will be annoyed. I'll put that out there. If they do succeed at this event, I will be annoyed that I didn't pick them, but also I'd just be happy for them. I hope FaZe also make it through.
Yeah. Okay, I've gone with the sure thing. Surely. The sure thing at this event. The team that everyone really wanted in Group B. And the team you couldn't get because of the way we picked.
Mm-hmm.
I took Spirit. Because of course I did. And because I picked them this time, they're winning the event. That's just how it works, right? If you'd got them, it might have crashed out at the last second, visa problems. But surely no, they're good. They're winning the event. I picked them. But yeah, it's been a weird time with Spirit because they've not been at every event. And a few times this year they've had problems with attending events. But this time they're here, they're ready, they're ready to go. A bit disappointing they weren't able to win Bet Boom Daha. Because for them that should have been the warm-up tournaments, just come in here and just stomp everyone. Like they should get themselves flowing, get themselves rolling, and come into this event and absolutely just dominate. But what's great is Donk didn't miss a beat. He was amazing. He won MVP out of second place. Something he's going to have to get used to. I've got to start smiling in those pictures, bro. It's tough, but smile through the pain. And yeah, they are terrifying. They still have the best player in the world, probably. They still have an Orpo who plays at an elite level. And some other pieces who actually contribute. Just it's not as obvious
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the time on the stat sheet. I think, yeah, I still believe in the chopper system. I still think he's a solid IGL he's just getting the most he can out of one of the most OP weapons that exist. So, all credit to him. Let's see if he can keep it going and potentially bring home another trophy because it's been a bit of a drought. I need to hurry up and get back on track.
See, this is why, when you picked Vitality, I was like, oh, it's actually kind of funny. You've picked both the teams that at the most recent tournaments, both the star players, like Zaiwu won MVP at ESL Pro League, didn't win the tournament. Donk wins MVP at Bebu
Yeah.
Gaha, didn't win the tournament. You've picked the two teams that have both lost to MOUZ in the finals, but had MVPs on their squads.
So I said MOUZ last, when you picked MOUZ, it's like, yeah, it's not that big a stage. Maybe they get the monkey off their back. I picked Spirit. They're not getting the monkey off their back. MOUZ, the stage is too big for them. They won't be able to deny Donk or Zaiwu.
But do they need to deny Donk? Because they disappeared at the major. They disappeared, bro.
They were sick, allegedly, and other excuses that were very legit.
That was also the Zaiwu excuse.
It was. I think there was actually a thing going on. But more importantly, you got to remember, they were sick they didn't have their team at full strength, yada, yada, yada.
Mm-mm.
That game was a Carrigan masterclass that still required, was it 2 overtime periods? Yeah. They won in double OT, Spirit on their map pick. Then it took overtime on Vertigo for FaZe to decide it. So on their worst day, their big choke was losing to FaZe in really close fashion. I'm
Yeah.
good. I'll take it. I'll take it.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm just trying to play. These are the angles and these are the concerns I do have about Spirit. I think one of them, or I guess the pairing of them, actually, no, it is just Zontix. My concern is Zontix.
Okay.
Because this guy from the online tournaments that they played in the lead up to Katowice and everything was hyper consistent, super cool, calm, always made really good decisions in late round moments to recover rounds. And then you see him at the major, goes missing. Like genuinely griefing rounds, actually, with the way that he was playing. The lights, I don't know if it was like legitimately the lights too bright because they just won Katowice before that. Um, but
Yeah.
for me, Zontix is the concern because he's seen what it's like to win. He's seen what it's like to achieve, and he's also felt the immediate snapback as well of, okay, the pressure can still get to you. You might know what winning feels like, but when things don't work, that pressure gets to you. And I think this is another one of those environments where I don't think Spirit will have problems making it out of playoffs. Fine. I'm thinking about longer term than this.
Yeah.
But when they get to playoffs, I worry that Zontix may have some demons to fight, personally, because he knows he has to be a closer in rounds like this. He knows he has to be good positionally versus the elite players that are coming to retake his bomb sites or take his bomb sites from him. He is my main concern, I think. You know, just because he is supposed to be the closer. He's supposed to be like a Zipex type weapon for this team and has been his biggest strength kind of on the rise of Spirit. So if he battles that and he does well this tournament, fine, maybe he's shaking it. But that is a concern I do have about this team because there are very skilled free agents within their region that maybe could level Spirit up, but they have to justify holding on to their position if they want to continue to be the best team within this year. Because you're looking at Donk being maybe one of the best players, easily top 3 NHLTV, but that's very much predicated on having success at tournaments as well.
Yeah.
You don't want to squander that as well if you're Spirit as an organization.
It is. Yeah, that is fair actually, because I did. Well, no, here's the thing. Just based on his individual stats, for him to be top 3 in HLTV's ranking, it won't require that much. Because it's the power of that MVP and the fact that they actually won Katowice and the fact that he's actually picked up another MVP despite not winning an event, and he's done so incredibly in every game they've played pretty much. Will by itself make him top 3. I think them needing to win a couple more events was going to separate him from the Monte and the Zywoo, who are going to probably be up there with him. But no, I mean, god damn, this kid. Absolutely crazy.
No, I mean
So.
it's a joy to watch. This is the thing. I think they were even saying that on the cast for Bet Boom. It's like, man, it's just so nice to watch Donk after like a little hiatus because it
Yeah.
was kind of like, oh, the major, yeah, well, whatever. And then we had Pro League and they weren't at that, so and now we get to see Donk in full force again. You just get reminded all the time, and it's even more potent now because they're not participating in as many like online tournaments as they were once upon a time. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the worst part about watching a demo that includes Donk is if you're watching someone on the other team. It's frustrating. It's so frustrating. Like, because you see on X-ray or you see on the minimap, like, oh, Donk's in this spot. You're like, please don't get absolutely wrecked. Please don't get absolutely wrecked. And you see an elbow, half a Russian kid, and death. And you're like, oh, for crying out loud. What am I supposed to make of that? Like, writes in the notes, Donk. Like, he did nothing wrong. I can't give him a damn shred of credit because he just got donked. It's incredibly frustrating. It made, I think it was a Trunic demo once, just on Ancient, because he's like fighting mid every round. Donk's holding mid, and he went like 1 for 6. Every time he died, it wasn't like, oh, he got flashed or the counter util was great. He just got raw dicked by Donk's aim. It was filthy. I was just like, this is improper. But yeah, I hope we can see more of that. Just more of that
Yeah.
insane level Donk.
No, I
That'll
mean,
be
all he
great.
needs to do is win 2 events this year, like
Pretty much.
with big teams, and he will be the top player this year as a rifler, which is well, I'm trying to think of the last time that happened.
Last time a
Cold?
Rifler was the #1 player was Cold Zero.
Yeah, Cold
Since then, it's
2016,
been
right? Yeah.
Simple, Zywoo. Just that's it. It's been
Yeah,
Simple and
yeah.
Zywoo.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, they've been kind of like they've been Messi and Ronaldo, except well, all of a sudden that paradigm's just about to be shattered
Yeah,
by this
well,
floppy head Russian kid.
and also Simple's not competing this year, basically. So.
Oh yeah, Simple's just yeah, he's teaching, he's showing us his wisdom.
Mm,
I need to
yeah.
I need to see if I can find a way to
Yeah.
watch
Let's
that stuff.
not dive into that. That's a whole topic.
That might have to be a whole live stream in itself. Just
Yeah.
just let's learn. Let's learn.
Yeah.
What's
I don't
the,
rate.
what do,
I don't hate the spirit pick, of course. It is just
oh,
simply, you know,
it's
maybe
obvious.
some issues later down the line.
It's too obvious. All right, underdogs. Let's see who you've gone with here, because this group had a lot of choices, but I think all of them with their fair share of downsides.
Yeah. See, the more that I think about it, the more I should have just picked this other team, which we'll talk about them later. But the team that I did pick instinctively looking at this group was Heroic. Dexter is back, and he doesn't look terrible. So that's a massive positive for me. You
Yeah,
know, replacing Nikadoz's I mean on Nikadoz on the AWP, and the biggest concern about Dexter was about how much he'd played CS2 and whether or not he was going to be any good on the AWP. I mean, I think personally, from what I watched, he looked fine. I think the biggest question then will become like his attitude and adapting to like the actual calling, because I think they would have given him a little bit of more free spirited of an approach coming into Bet Boom. But I do think, you know, Dexter is an upgrade if he is showing up in that way. I think they do have some upset potential, because I think Shush and Tessus have again still just been doing absolute God's work for this heroic organization. They have kept this organization afloat, because Nertz isn't. I mean, he's still putting up numbers. Nertz is still putting up numbers.
yeah,
Again, I will preface that, but he is not having the same level of impact as he once did when he was on Ants. He is very frequently not the guy you look to in these closing moments,
mm,
even though he used to be a starter, a finisher, a mid. He'd do everything for Ents
yep.
at one point or another. He is not that guy currently. But him putting up those numbers does allow for players like Shush and Tessus to take over. And I think if Dexter can provide the output that he did at this sort of first debut, then I could see them. I mean they can beat a Virtus Pro. I don't think they should, but they can beat a Virtus Pro if
It'll be
Virtus Pro
rough.
kind of look the way they do right now.
Yeah, it'll be rough because the map, the map matchup, doesn't go in Heroic's favor. Like their strongest map is VP's Perma, and yeah, I don't see them having many comfortable picks to go into. But the fact that we got Dexter, not only was he probably the best player on Heroic in terms of just rating and sort of his impact on winning, but he was assertive. Like he took a good amount of opening attempts, and he didn't actually miss that many shots. Like he
Yeah.
thought he'd be a bit rusty. I thought he'd be. My two worries were he's not going to be confident enough, and so he won't take the sort of risks he was known for before. Or on the other extremity, he's going to take every risk in the damn book, but he's going to be
He'll miss
wildly
everything.
erratic and just
Yeah.
miss. He was neither. He was thankfully a bit in between. Like he wasn't. Yeah, Dexter at his best was really strong AWPer. He wasn't quite there, but he can get there definitely. And yeah, it's true. Nertz has not been the match winner he was before. He needs us to find that extra gear to really just put opponents away. Just hasn't been that guy. And of course, you can't overestimate like how impactful and how important Tessus and Shush have been since the collapse and the recreation of an actual team. Without them, this would be nothing. So, full credit to them that this team even exists at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's going to be a rough opening matchup against VP. Then their lower bracket game, well, we'll talk about that in a second. So I think they might have a surprise opponent.
Yeah. Well, the other team that I was thinking about when I was just looking over the teams was actually FlyQuest, but I know why I didn't pick them, because they're against Spirit first round, and
Yep.
they will probably get dominated. But this
Crushed, yeah.
FlyQuest team is kind of like I I have always kind of rated FlyQuest. I thought they underperformed at the RMRs. But I do think that they are they are actually a force. They will make the next major in my opinion. And they will probably make top 16 in the
Hmm.
next major. So I I
I
think
wouldn't put
they
that
have
much money
that.
on them.
I think they have that type of ceiling. The hardest part is getting to it consistently. You know, Vexite sometimes has some issues. I don't think he's had that as much recently when he's been on LAN. Alistair can try a little too hard to take over rounds, and instead, you know, he's your fear for Dexter. He's
Yeah.
aggressive peak into erratic misses. Um, you know, once they dial Alistair back a little bit, I think this team actually can be quite a good threat. And you know, I have high hopes for them. I think so.
Yeah, they shouldn't be losing out on major qualifications really with this roster. Like, that was
Mm,
their first real event together, I believe, that RMR,
yeah,
and it went horribly. I mean, I was glad because I got to see some like the teams I enjoy really like qualify. But for them, yeah, it'll be almost a given that they should make it through that. Now, the problem I have with them is just they there's the positives I just don't think are strong enough for me to ever like picking them. Because the positive really is for me right now is, oh, they can compete in tier 2 of Europe. Nice. That's not what we're talking about here. You're playing at IEM Dallas. You know, you got yourself your regional qualifier. You've got to beat real teams now. And, I don't see them doing it.
yeah,
Even when they go down the lower bracket and they face what statistically it's going to be big.
probably big. Yeah,
It's a coin flip matchup at best for them, and I'm not liking it.
I think they own big. I'll be honest. I think they would destroy big. I don't
I
think
don't
big
see
look
it.
very good at all at the moment.
No, but
And
I'm a massive hater. So
I think Inns is honestly a very legit like e- elite level rifler right now. I think he is genuinely expressing that he is an elite level rifler right now. He is into sig. So
mm,
I thought I thought about picking him. I thought looking at the teams just now to pick him, but they face Spirit first round. It sucks. Unlucky. We move on,
yeah,
I
they don't win
guess.
their opener for sure.
Yeah.
That's definite. Right, we'll see how they fare. We got a bit sidetracked there talking about
Sorry, my
FlyQuest.
bad.
There's one. No, that's all right. I've got one more underdog left to talk about. That is, of course, the mighty M80. Ah, oh, what a roster! What a team led by an absolute Chad in MOUZ ND. Just a game style I can get behind, and a level of play no one really expected them to come out with. It's, let's be honest, they made the change to bring in Sin, and I, kind of hyped them up going into Pro League. Some might say unnecessarily, considering the tiny amount of like kind of prior games I actually had to go off.
Hmm.
They played like 4 BO1s in Challenger League with Sin, and I decided it's going to work. I was kind of, I mean, it's sort of a honeymoon phase, but I was still kind of right. And I love the fact that I was kind of right. It was crazy, that run. And I'm still going to keep believing in them. I mean, are we going to get that level of play out of Slacks and Sin going forward? It's hard to believe that we will, but I think we're going to keep getting that sort of level out of MOUZ. And I'm calling a slow start for FaZe, who then just sweep through the lower bracket. And I think M80 can get that one game upset that just propels them into the playoffs. That's all they need, because then they face VP or Heroic. Talk about winnable. Like, I'm not saying they're
Yeah,
favorites,
yeah,
but
yeah,
again,
no.
a winnable upset. I'm really liking M80. This is pure hopium. I'm just really excited after what I saw at Pro League. I
Yeah.
think
I mean,
M80 have a shot.
13-2 G2 on Ancient, right? So, you know, that's kind of outrageous,
Off
but
the back of the one and only God,
yeah, it did happen. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I have a soft spot for M80 because when they first formed, I think both you and I were like very, very excited about what this team could be. Um,
hmm
yeah, I've been weirdly surprised with the Sin move, and I think we talked about it for the playoffs when we covered them not making it, but we did cover them. Um, yeah, they're an interesting team. I think there's even been talk about like whether or not MOUZ finally gets his call up to a big organization because he's been around the circuit for a long time. People have been like, guys, pick this guy up, and nobody's really done it. Um, so it might finally happen if they have a honestly, if they have a decent run at this event, it actually just might happen by the end of the player break, which would suck
Yeah,
for M80 to be honest.
oh,
So
massively. It's basically the death of the team, but I've been rooting for MOUZ for way too long. Way too long. He's been so good.
yeah, I mean, speaks English fluently, speaks Spanish, I
He does,
think.
yep. And
Yeah.
he speaks
Yeah.
Portuguese.
Oh well, there you go.
Or unless he was speaking Spanish in those Brazilian teams he was playing in.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, he would have been speaking Portuguese. Yeah, no, that's right. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't speak Spanish.
No, he does. He's Guatemalan. He speaks Spanish.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm just showing my geographical ignorance. Um, yeah. No, this team is interesting because even outside of MOUZ, like Rek and Swisher, I think are worthy of being on like. Oh well, I mean they should have been in the pipeline, or they should have been in whatever progress projects you had in NA beforehand. But I think they have their own spot. Like you wouldn't put them in a liquid right now. You wouldn't put them in a complexity right now. But
Probably
if
not,
they
no.
wanted to look for NA talents, these would be the guys. Um, and Sin maybe could just be a solid in-game leader. I don't really know. From my understanding, he has like his own philosophy and things he wants to do, and it's not just like big Counter Strike, which is cool. And yeah, that could be interesting. You know, in-game leaders are very sought after
Yeah.
consistently. So
Yeah, and the fact that he's not just brought over the big system, he has got actual conviction in his own ideas, probably
mhm.
I think is a positive thing going forward as well. So I'm really excited to follow Sin, even if MOUZ gets swept up in a big shuffle in an A or something that happens. Or yeah, even in a European team, like one of these teams that keeps making seemingly random rosters, just smashing bits together. Maybe they take a bit of a risk, fork out a few dollars, and go get him. Yeah, I still think Sin slacks Rek Swisher. Go find yourself a fifth. Who's that specky guy from EG who was actually good and you know played for relatively aggressive? Oh, he wasn't crazy good, but
Oh,
does his name start with a H?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't remember. There were so many people on EG.
Yeah, I've just got his face in my head and I can't get rid of it. And I know who I'm referring to, but I can't for the life of me.
You say glasses?
He has glasses.
Text?
Text. Like if you're talking like getting an American player in there,
Hmm.
and then once Mabs and these sniped, like you can still try and make something work. I always thought Hex was actually fairly solid, so maybe he'd be a risk to take. But no, at this point we're spitballing about other
Yeah.
stuff really. No, they are a team with upset potential at this point, mostly off the back of Malbs. Like
Yeah.
Malbs being crazy impactful, and the rest of the guys like keeping it together, playing solid. I think they can make something happen. And sure, maybe I'm getting a bit too overexcited saying they're going to upset FaZe and make playoffs when they beat, Virtus Pro, but that's the sort of hope you should have in an underdog pick, I think. So
Yeah.
they're going to do it. They're going to make it. They're going to make me proud.
Cool. Well, we didn't talk about Navi, but they
Kind of have to a bit.
yeah, Navi probably should make it out of this group as well, I think. But I think Group B is a harder group than Group A, to be quite frank with you. I mean,
Well, I
VP
don't
Heroic is a
know.
bit of a coin flick. FaZe, Spirits, Navi.
I guess
It's
it's harder
just
for us to pick. I'm just not sure it's harder for a team who's supposedly on Navi's level to get out.
I just think when you think about like MOUZ Vitality, but you've got like Complexity, Liquid-ish, G2-ish, Falcons not really, Monte not really, like 9Z not really. I think there's weaker teams in Group A than there are in Group B. I think Group B is a little bit more upsettable and maybe a little bit more difficult in that regard.
I don't know. I just don't have much. I think you have a little more stock in VP and
VP and
Heroic than I
Heroic,
do.
yeah,
So I
maybe.
don't see them as particularly threatening. I just think Navi, we saw them at Pro League. prove everyone right who decided to be a massive hater after the major. Like, it was a limited sample. They lost 2 games, one of which was to Complexity, who had, I think, surprising overperformance from Grim to get them through to a map 3 that Elige went and dominated. But I think it's more realistic to see that, like them dropping a map to Big, not getting crazy elite numbers out of guys like JL. Who'd have seen that coming? Like, even a surprise Immo was only around for 1 BO3, and that was against Big. So
yeah,
it really looked ugly for Na'Vi, and I think number 3 in the world, that's not a number that's going to stay still, and it's not going up. I think they are going to fall back down to earth a little bit. And I don't think the magical super system that Blade has hinted at is going to somehow save the fact that they don't have a real star player, like Star Rifler. Like, I'm not sure it's going to work.
They've got 3 riflers that sometimes become stars, and then can sometimes just also vanish as well. So, yeah, it's an interesting discussion, interesting team, but I feel like they have to be caught in this conversation. It's either Na'Vi or VP for me. That's like third out of this group, probably.
On paper, yes. Yeah, I think it has to be one of those two. Who are your pick for third out?
Because I will happily dunk on Big. Big ain't making anything happen at this event.
Well, they're just going to beat Na'Vi, though, aren't they? They're just going to beat Na'Vi, though. It's fine.
If they beat Na'Vi, I will be furious. I will genuinely be livid. And not because, listen, Crimbo and JDC are doing the Lord's work on this team. JDC is a much more complete player than he ever was on the MOUZ project. He is actually making much better decisions. He is hitting far better shots. He is playing, honestly, out of his mind. Him and Crimbo are saving this team from falling into, like, the bottom 70 teams in the world right now. Searson ain't cutting it. tabseN's calling doesn't look that strong. Persis, to be honest, he's been okay. I think you're getting what you want out of Persis. He's delivering on a level. But God, this team is like it looks a shambles right now in my eyes. Like, this is not the Big I fell in love with once upon a time. It's not like, incredibly util driven and you've got these players that are just great role players. No. These people are messing up their roles right now, but mainly Searson, in my opinion. And tabseN is getting. I saw them lose so many anti-force spies or anti-ecos at the CCT event that it was honestly not even funny anymore. I thought the first few were kind of hilarious, like, Big, so structured. No, this is a joke. Like, they lost so many force spies. It was upsetting. And it wasn't typically JDC or Crimbo that gets caught, because I don't really play those spots. It's like the pack. It's Searson, Prosus, tabseN that just get, like, destroyed. Oh, I've never been so animated about a team losing, because usually it's just like, oh, they're bad, let's move on. But God, Big should be better than this.
You say all that. I look at the fact that at Pro League, they beat Heroic. They took a map off Na'Vi, and they probably, I think, have a far better chance of doing something in that series if it's not for God Immer deciding to show up for a map. I think they're still a threat, despite the fact that they are so aggressively flawed. I still think they're a threat to, like, upset Na'Vi in the opener. Yeah. They're a threat in the lower brackets to just beat someone they shouldn't beat. They're just an annoying team that I think is going to surprise some people.
Maybe Searson is like the opposite of how old Searson was, where it's like all online, and now he's on LAN. He's unleashed.
He's a LAN god.
He will finally be the LAN god he was always talked about, or he always dreamed about, but now can no longer play games online. Like, he just can't do it.
He's found, like, 9 other people with a computer in his tiny village, and he's been practicing. He's built them a LAN. He brought one switch and made a LAN server.
That's what he's been doing all this time. He's just been boot camping with these 9 other people.
They're basically bots, but he's practicing LAN. He's playing 1v9. He gets an AWP. That's it. I believe. Yeah, I mean, it'll be hilarious.
I just believe Big should be better than this, and they currently are not.
I mean, considering
So
the pieces and like when they signed the pieces, I think they're about what they should be. Because I had zero respect for the moves they made. And they're like, "Hey, we're bringing back Searson." It's like, now, really, now? You want
yeah,
Searson now?
the
There's no
Searson
bidding
move
war.
was the Searson move was more questionable to me. The JDC one, like I've seen what he does on this roster now, and he
Mm.
JDC is that guy now. But whereas everybody like other pieces have just vanished. So yeah,
Mm. We'll see what comes of it. I think Group B is just far murkier than Group A in terms of. Oh, there's a lot of weak teams, and there's going to be some upsets, I think. But it's going to be a fun event. IEM Dallas. I
I'm pumped
think.
for it. Genuinely. Sometimes
Yeah, I'm
Dallas
really
comes
pumped for
around,
it.
and I'm just like a bit, oh well, Dallas exists. But
Yeah,
this Dallas, I think, actually has more punch to it.
there's a couple Dallas events like where I have been like, ooh, who made it for the women's events? Like, I'm actually just looking forward to the Impact Finals.
Right? Okay.
So I'm just not that gassed about the men's game, but like here, sorry, the Open event. Yeah, I'm fairly hyped. I think we have a lot of really big storylines like converging. Some players who've been on absolute heaters, some teams who've been insane. It's going to be a great event, and yeah, we're going to be following it. I'm going to put up the community posts, let you guys have your say. We'll see if we can do a little better than the EPL playoffs. And all right, thank you for watching. If you made it this far, you're my hero. And we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.